Welcome to Books on Air. I'm Suzanne Harris. Books on Air is a series where we do a deep dive into the writer's passion. We talk about why they wrote the book. We talk about what their writing process is like, always a bit of a mystery. And what do they hope that their reader will take away from their book? You, my dear audience, will get a real glimpse behind the curtain, if you will. Joining me today is Irene Holmes, and she's here to talk about her fascinating, gripping, and suspenseful historical novel called Reflections. Irene, it is such a pleasure to welcome you to Books on Air. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me. Nice to meet you.
Well, you are just so interesting. You and I could talk about so many things, and I know we're here to talk about the book, but you are an artist and a professional potter. I can't tell you how envious I am, first of all, that you have that talent, because I've always wanted to be a potter. I've had that clay in my hands once, and I just thought, oh, this is so fun. Tell me about your art.
Well, in a previous life, last century, and it was last century, I did an arts degree, printmaking, art history, drawing. They were the core ones, core units, and then I did an elective which was ceramics, and my husband at that time was also interested in ceramics, so we started our own little pottery in the back garden, and then with some other friends opened a gallery and sold our work through the gallery, and I loved it. I really did enjoy the creativity and the solace, really. It's quite a soothing thing to be doing. You don't have any fingernails, mind you. They disappeared after about week one. But after several years, about 10 years or so, I had an injury to my hand and had to have the carpal tunnel surgery done. So that was the end of anything heavy work like clay, wedging clay and moving kiln shelves and things around. So I did that for about 10 years. And then when I couldn't do it anymore, I went back to printmaking and drawing and painting. So there you go. Yeah. And I was an art specialist teacher in school, so it was very handy for me to have those skills and knowledge beforehand.
You know,
that's about as interesting as it gets.
Well, the thing that really jumped out at me, that made me think about all of this as a tie-in, is that the creative brain is the creative brain. And you already had that artistic, creative brain. What made you decide that you wanted to write? Well, being a teacher, you're always a storyteller and a bit of a performer. And I could get kids engaged in stories, and I thought, well, I may as well write them down. So I was sitting and waiting for a friend one day. I was inside a little cafe, and she was on her way to meet me, and I could see her coming up the street, but because of the reflections on the outside of the window, she couldn't see me inside. And the way my creative, quirky, somewhat strange brain starts to work, I was sitting there and thinking, oh, I wonder what a criminal or a killer, how could they use that, see the other person but not be seen themselves? And so my little brain started to tick it all over, and that's how this one started. That's how this book started, really. And I wanted to write a story that didn't follow the usual formula kind of approach, like boy meets girl and all ends up happy, or there's a detective who runs around collecting all sorts of information and so on, and sees clues that others can't see and gets them all together at the end for the denouement. I wanted to do it in a different way, so the reader is reading along and thinking to themselves, well, how did they... Hang on, what's he going to do now? Oh, kind of thing. Yes. I love it. When I was obviously, I do my homework before I talk to you, and you talked about writing little notes, and you called them, I believe, snippets. And you talked about
snippets, yeah,
when you were trying to put the book together, that you were using your snippets, and that you talked about that writing process. And I think that kind of process is so unique. I shared with you. Yeah, I do. I mean, I just love this. I used to interview all kinds of authors, and you're either a planner or you're a pantser.
And if you're a planner, you sit down and you outline the book, and you almost write the book in the outline. But if you're a pantser, you sit down at the keyboard or with a pad in your hand, and the book seems to come out of the end of a pencil or a pen or off the keyboard. It's like the movie starts in your head. Are you a planner or a pantser?
I guess possibly a bit of both, because I had the idea of the line of the story that I wanted to do, and I had a good idea of how I wanted it to end without any specific details at that point. But, and then I would sit down and plan little pieces of it. But then at other times when we were driving along, my husband would say, "What you up to?" And I'd say, "Well, I'm writing in my head." So I'd be writing what was going to happen next, or I'd go back to what one character did yesterday and I'd add more to that in my head. Then when I got home, I'd write it all down on my paper, put those together. And then when I have lots of snippets about that particular character at whichever part of the story we're at, I'll start putting them together like a jigsaw puzzle and then making the links and adding more links and more descriptions and so forth. So I guess I'm a bit of both, because once I start, I've gone through several fountain pens already, because I'm working on a third book, so that's the stage I'm in with that one. So yeah, I did a bit of both. But once I sit down to put the pieces together out of my head on paper, it's a bit like a steamroller, really. Sort of out the way, I'm coming in.
And you cannot write fast enough, right?
No, that's right. That's why I use a pencil now, because it makes me write more slowly, and I can actually read it when I want to go back and do it, polish it up and put it on the keyboard thing. Before that, it just looked like a bunch of chicken scratches on the paper that even I couldn't interpret. So not much use there. So, yeah, I do a pencil now to slow myself down.
Well, let's give our listeners an overview of this wonderful book that was in your head that we just heard you talk about getting down on paper. Let's tell them about the characters and what the overview of the book is.
Okay, well, it is a murder mystery. Okay, that's no big surprise there. I set it in England, 1926-ish, because England and Europe and, well, the whole world really, was just picking up the pieces after the First World War, a horrific time. And everybody in the book, well, everybody in the world, was affected by that in some way or another. But in 1926, people are trying to put back their families back together in villages and towns and the economy and all of that. It's a quieter, more gentle time where good manners are expected, and that's just a social norm. People valued their privacies, no one being pushed around by a little telephone in your back pocket kind of thing. So that's why I chose where I chose. But there was also the influence of the Spanish flu raging through England, and that does have a little tiny link with Lady Gregson, good old Matilda. She's a good chook, she's okay. Conveniently dies early in the story, which is fine, and then the snowball effect happens after her death. And it's that death in her house. She was an old lady, she was ill, so it was expected, not friendly, but expected that she was going to die. So there was no big deal about that, really. But everybody in the house, of course, is affected by that. And people in the village, you know how you drop a pebble in a pond and all those little ripples go out to the edge? Well, that was what her death did to the household and to the village. Those little ripples started to wander off to the edge of the villages and houses. So you get to meet her nephew that she'd never really met before, but she didn't have any male heirs to hand down her estate, and that's the way it works from the British, or did at that time. In the British system, you had to go to a male heir. He didn't have one. So young James was sort of popped into the picture there. And he's a nice young lad. Well, 30. In my world, that's a young lad. And we learn about him and how he grows from a young business partner in London, and how he grows into the man or the manor kind of thing, and how he deals with people. We also meet some of the staff in the household. Two housemaids in particular, Lily and Ruby. They're quite young. Like Lily's about 18 thereabouts, and Ruby's a bit younger than that. Good old country girls from Yorkshire, not really been anywhere in the world, and we watch them grow into, one of them into quite a strong, courageous young woman rather than a little
boppy housemaid, and then we get to know Ruby's a bit more strong and a bit more feisty than everyone saw her as being initially. Then we meet Mr. James's intended, Dorothy Bosworth. Well, she's not aristocratic, but just a tiny step down from there. But is she really as sweet and lovely as she presents herself? Question there.
I love it.
And of course, you meet the nurse, because she's been hired as a contract nurse to look after Lady Gregson, knowing what the end result was going to be. But she's efficient, she's effective, she's very professional, but she has her own secrets that affect decisions she makes from her introduction through to the end of the book. There you go, that's about it. There's other characters in there as well, of course, but they're not the main ones.
Would you share a little of your actual words with the listeners? Would you
like me to read a bit?
Yes, if you
wouldn't
mind.
Sure.
I always like to hear the words from the author's mouth.
Okay. Now, this is the part sort of just leading into Lady Gregson's funeral, which is happening tomorrow. And James has gone to the train station to pick up his mother, Maud. All right. As he says to her, "Why did you leave your arrival until now, the night before the funeral, on the very last train?" Well, for several reasons, dear. You see, people in our position should do their grieving in private, don't you think? Not make a spectacle in front of the villagers and the whole county. We must maintain our position. And besides, I needed to be sure that Winifred had everything in order before I left the house, you see, to be sure that nothing goes amiss while I'm away. Mother, you will only be gone for 1 week, and Winifred's been running the house for more than 30 years. I hardly think she needs any extra instructions. Also, Mother, you don't live in this county, and you don't have a position to maintain. Oh, only 1 week, dear. Well, perhaps. You never know in these situations, do you? She asked with a smug smile. Oh, God, thought James. That does not bode well. I wonder if Father really did die of a fever, or if he just held his breath long enough until his brain popped, just to escape from her. I wouldn't be surprised.
I love it.
Now that Maud was settled in the back of the seat... Now that she was settled in the back seat of the car with James, she leaned across and patted his hand in a conspiratorial, domineering manner, saying, "Now, I don't wish to be indelicate, dear, but now that your position has changed and you're a man of property and wealth, you really do need to start thinking about marrying. A gentleman who owns significant estate really does need a wife." James just stared at her, mouth agape, incredulous. "You don't mean to sound indelicate. Do you think perhaps we might at least lay your only surviving cousin in the ground before you start taking over my household and my staff and my private life and reordering the whole county as well, I imagine?" He was really angry and loathing his mother with each additional word. "Of course, dear," she smiled again, completely ignoring his anger. "There'll be plenty of time for addressing all those things after the funeral. Next week will be time enough to start. Really, Mother, you are too much. Quite horrid, actually. And I'm going to leave you there."
Oh, I love it. I especially love the voices. That's just perfect. I know we've hooked the listeners. I know we have. And I'm curious about the book cover. When I went to Amazon, and here came the book cover, I thought, oh, is there a story behind that? Because it's so eye-catching and arresting and mysterious looking.
Oh, wow. Well, the story is the main characters are mostly females, and the killer, oh dear, okay, I'm not giving it away, I guess.
No, don't.
The killer is is a fractured, broken person, and you get to know more about that and how and when that happened way back in the past and how it affects what the killer does now. But the main event of the story is viewed by an unseen witness through the reflection in a mirror. So the cover shows that this killer
is a broken, damaged person, but is exposed through the reflection of a mirror.
Did you draw that? How did that come about? I mean, it's really eye-catching.
Oh, thank you. No, I didn't draw this one. That would take another 5 years for that to happen. I chose the image. I looked at many, many different images of reflections, most of which are absolutely beautiful, but didn't really give the strangeness and the question about why is she in pieces kind of feeling that I wanted from it. So I chose the image. I made a selection. Yeah.
Excellent choice.
Thank you.
Excellent choice.
Thank you.
Yes. Now, did you have any audience particularly in mind? I mean, I'm a mystery fan myself, and so when I read the excerpt that's there on Amazon, you hooked me right away as a mystery fan.
Oh, very good.
Sure. Were you thinking about mystery people or?
Yes, but more of the mature audience kind of thing, not children or teenagers. So sort of 30-ish older or thereabouts. And someone who likes a mystery and is a logical thinking kind of reader. How do we get from here to there? Or having done those steps, where's the reader going to go now? Or what's the character going to do next kind of thing? Logical, sequential. I know that sounds pretty boring, but that's how my head works. And I guess I was writing for someone like me, likes a mystery, likes to figure out how things are going to be dealt with, that kind of a reader.
With a red herring or two along the way. Yes. I always enjoy that.
Yes. Oh, yes.
I always enjoy that.
That's it. Yeah.
Now, I've said that the book is available. I've said that the book is available on Amazon. So the title of the book is quite simple. It's Reflections, Reflections by Irene, Irene, Holmes, Holmes. Go to Amazon, enter that title. It'll come right up and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about when you see the cover of the book. Irene, is there anywhere else? Sometimes people either don't want to go to Amazon or they would prefer to deal with a smaller bookseller. Is there somewhere else that they could buy the book?
Yes, you could go to the publisher's website, which is Ex Libris, xlibris.com, and it's on there. There's also, I have my own Ex Libris. If you go to Ex Libris site and put my name in, you should be able to get to my website for the book as well. And it's also available through Barnes and Noble's websites or stores. And I know there's some others, but I can't remember. Sorry.
That should be, they could Google if they want to see if there's something in their area. Or, I mean, you're in Australia, I'm in the U.S., and so perhaps the Australians might want to go somewhere closer, or they may not want to order online.
Sure.
Or the U.S. people may want to see if they could get it in their bookstore, so they could just Google and see.
Exactly. Yeah, excellent. Actually, if you go to Google, there is an ad and promotion running on Google for this book as well, so that'll make it easier for them.
Perfect. Now, you have a website. Let's talk about that. What will when our listeners go to check you out, as it were, what will they find on your website? And let's give them that web address.
Okay. I'll have to find it. But yes, they'll see a bit about me, myself. There'll be a place where they can actually order the book as well. And there's a place on there for them to give me a really wonderful whiz-bang review.
I love it. Now, I know that... Have you found that website?
Oh, hang on. Just talk among yourself there for a minute.
Exactly. Do.
That's it. You're a good girl. Well
Thank
done, you.
Well, I will mention...
I should have been prepared, shouldn't I?
Well, that's okay. We're all friends here. Relax. You're on Facebook as well, and I know you're having a little trouble with Facebook, but you have a pretty simple place that they can find you on Facebook, right?
Okay, sure. I think here we go. All right, so I found the website for me. It's all lowercase, ireneholmes.com/about the author / There you go.
Perfect. And on Facebook, they just need to use your name, Irene Holmes?
Yeah. You'll probably find several of them. Hard to believe there's another one of mine, but there we are. But I'm the good-looking one. I'm the interesting, good-looking one.
Yes, you are. And the talented one. Don't forget that. Don't forget that.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I forgot that one. Yes.
Now, if anyone listens to Books on Air frequently, they know that I feel strongly about authors and their work. And they know that I think it's a very, very necessary thing to let the author have the last word about their work. I love what you've done with this book. I love the mystery and the way that it unfolds, and I love your characters. And it was such a fun read. And when I finish the excerpt, you leave it in a perfect place for me to want to buy that book to find out what happens. So let's say I bought my copy of Reflections, and I'm sitting down and I'm reading. Now, I may read it all in one sitting, or I may be the kind of person that likes to read just a few pages before I go to sleep. But in any case, I will finally get to that last page, and I'll read that last page, and I'll close the book. And when I do that, Irene, do you want me to feel like I've just read a really ripping, good story, or is there something that you want me to take away?
Well, both, really. Yes, I'd like you to think, oh, wow, really? Oh, God, what's going to happen now? You know, I want the readers to think, maybe write their own book about what comes next, because that option is there. Yes, it's resolved. Yes, we know who done it and how and why, but you think, ooh, are they finished? Is the killer going to do it again? Who would be next on their list? Oh, dear, what's next kind of feeling. And I'd like the readers to think, well, that was an interesting way to do a book. It's not the standard formula of sex and violence, because a good story doesn't need those things to make it a good story. It's not the boy meets girl and everybody's happy, or the detective comes along and solves it all and takes it out of the hands of the characters. It's a story where the characters are in charge of all the unveiling of information and putting things together. So I'd like the readers to think, well, that was a different way of writing a murder mystery. So, yeah, those kinds of things is what I'd like them to take away.
Now, you mentioned that you've written 2 more books. Are they sister books to this one? No, they're not. The first one was another murder mystery, and I'm not going to tell you anything about the ending because that'll tell you something similar to this, but set in different places, different times. And the one that I'm currently working on is aimed at 14, 15-year-old kids, really, because I've been working in a local school, helping kids with their writing and such, which is working really well, actually. Their results have gone really sky high. So they were saying, can we write a book? And, well, that's going to take a bit more than you think. But so we wrote one. I started putting it together to show them the structure of how to put a story and hold things together and develop pieces and characters and such. And, of course, they're all saying, am I in it? Am I in it? So I had a group of 10 kids. So their names are in the book, not them as such. I've used their names for the characters. So they're all dead keen to get that one done and finished, because then I will give them a copy each signed for their names in it and such. But that's not really murder mystery. That's set, and it doesn't, in Europe somewhere, it's not specifically which country, and it's in medieval kind of times, because I want kids to get out of this technological, that's the only way you can write and read kind of mode, and I wanted them to use a different style in their own writing as well. So it's set in the medieval times, and all the one of them said, well, why did the character do that? Why didn't you just text him? I went, you are realizing this is in the 1300s, right? Oh, but how did people connect? How did people communicate? Oh, they either walked next door and spoke to the person, or possibly, if they were well enough educated, write a letter. Oh, shocking!
They didn't have any idea. Exactly, fancy people doing that. And but the kids didn't have a concept of having to wait for a week or so for a response to the question you've just written. You know, it has to be instant. So that was one of the things I was trying to get them out of thinking when they were writing their own books. Anyway, so that's the third one. I have 2 more in my head. They've been bubbling around there for a while, but not a lot of snippets down for them yet, but they will be.
I can't wait for us to talk again. You are not only delightful, you're inspirational. I just can't tell you how much I have enjoyed our conversation, and I want to thank you so very much for being my guest. It's just been wonderful.
Well, thank you very much, Suzanne. You're welcome in my home anytime.
Thank you. Now, remember, you can pick up a copy of Reflections by Irene Holmes, and that last name is spelled Holmes, on Amazon, Barnes & Noble.
Sorry to interrupt. Just like Uncle Sherlock, with a name like that, I have to write murder mysteries, right?
Of course you
Sorry
do.
To interrupt you.
And why didn't I think to ask you about that? I love that. Are you related to Sherlock, by the way?
Oh, he was my dad's uncle. Yeah.
I love it. Irene, I do hope we talk again. Thank you so much.
I hope so too. Thank you for your time, Suzanne.
You've been listening to Books on Air. I hope you've enjoyed this interview half as much as I have. Books on Air is brought to you on the webtalkradio.net platform, but you can also hear our podcast on Apple, iHeartRadio, and Stitcher. Remember, keep reading, keep writing, and keep telling your stories. Thank you so very much for listening.